Hi everyone, this is Tom. I just read this paper. I thought it was really interesting and has some implications for practice. So I came into this kind of echoey room. I hope the sound quality is not too bad, to kind of explain to you what it's saying. So it's by this guy Neil O'Connell, who is at Brunel University in London. And it's called Twin Peaks, No Evidence of Bimodal Distribution Outcomes in Clinical Trials of Non-Surgical Interventions for Spinal Pain. So that's turned a few people off straight away, but I think the interesting thing about this paper is it kind of has this quite nerdy premise, but in the end ends up being pretty important for like shop floor physiotherapy practice. So I'm going to try and race through it so I'm not kind of waffling on. The authors set up the reason they're doing this trial, this study, by saying that, of course, that's something we all know, which is that when you do an RCT, you compare two groups together. So say exercise versus usual care, that kind of thing. And in order to tell the difference between the two groups, you basically take the mean, the average. So that's fair enough. We're all familiar with that. But then they say that there's this kind of accusation that's leveled against RCTs and against taking the mean, which is, well, the mean washes out all the kind of complex differences in the way people respond. And what if some people are responding to treatments and other people aren't? So let's say the treatment is spinal manipulation. What if some people really like that and they have really good success from it, whereas some people don't? Well, when you take the average of those like two groups of people, then it's going to average out to something that's not very impressive. And let's see, they gave us this graph in the appendix, and I just kind of pasted it in here to explain. This will help us get to grips with some of the kind of technical words. If you look at the graph on the left here, this is a bimodal distribution. So maybe when we do a trial of something for back pain, like I say, spinal manipulative therapy or exercise or acupuncture or paracetamol, maybe people are responding in this way. Here's the people who don't really get better at all. Nothing happens to them. But here's the responders. They get great pain relief, look over 50%. So this would be really important to know if this is going on. But in the graph on the right, we can see what happens when you do what we do in an RCT, which is take the mean and compare it against a control group. So here's a control group in red. They're all non-responders, not much is happening there. They don't have this kind of bimodal distribution, so two peaks, twin peaks. And the averages of the two end up being about the same, so the conclusion is that there's no significant difference between the two. So this is going on, it's really important to know. And it's not just, I don't think it's just kind of an ivory tower research thing. Often we'll say as a justification for using an intervention, well, the research shows that it's kind of not that great, but that's because it assesses like a lot of people and the effects kind of wash out. But in my experience, certain people are responders to this, and I just need to target those responders. So does this kind of bear out in the research? Well, first of all, they do it kind of explain why this idea of responder analysis is not as kind of golden as it sounds. For example, just because we've got this bimodal distribution, just because we've got this group of people who get better, doesn't mean they've responded. So it doesn't mean that the treatment's been effective, it just means that some people got better. So straight away, that's pretty meaningless. And I don't want to kind of spend too much time kind of discussing the introduction here. So I'm just going to kind of race through that bit. And they say the importance of them doing this study. So in kind of pharmacological studies, they do find this bimodal distribution. So there are responders and non-responders, but it's not been established whether we have that in pain, whether we have that in physiotherapy. So it's really important to find out. They found 10 trials, so unfortunately not too many, which they admit is a weakness. Stuff like exercise, manual therapy. There's a little bit of stuff here about the way they plan to analyze the data if they found bimodal distributions. but they didn't, so it doesn't actually become relevant. And there's a bit about a secondary analysis that I'm going to race through as well. So just a bit more detail on the kind of studies that were included: Tai Chi, motor control, McKenzie, graded activity, manipulative therapy. So a pretty good kind of broad cross-section of common physiotherapy practice. So the results. Are there responders and non-responders? Is there a bimodal distribution? Well, in acute spinal pain, back, neck pain, there is no bimodal distribution. It's unimodal. So we have the graphs here, which again, I just pasted up here. You can see that they're kind of unimodally distributed. The kind of interesting thing is that exercise has this like wide distribution. I'm not sure how much that means really. And in chronic spinal pain, again, it's just unimodal distribution. You don't get responders and non-responders, and that's what it looks like. The wider distribution there is for manual therapy. So the conclusion is kind of, or the results are kind of really short. We don't have responders and non-responders visible in pain trials and physiotherapy, or at least not in these pain trials. And that included paracetamol as well. So the authors conclude that although they kind of agree that like testing these mean between group differences in RCTs is a blunt tool, and we're missing like a lot of information in doing this, they kind of dispute that responder analysis is the answer. They don't think we can tell much more from doing this, because there just isn't that bimodal distribution, so it's inappropriate to do the analysis. What's this? So can we do responder analysis kind of retrospectively to check whether certain subgroups have certain characteristics that make them get better? And then they say that no, that's not appropriate either, because it's still kind of is based on this fallacy that the people who get better are responders, but they're not. They just got better. It doesn't mean that the treatment was effective. So you can't kind of isolate one group and say, oh, well, all these people had brown hair, so maybe brown hair is like a predictive factor for exercise being effective or something. It's not appropriate. They are really honest about the limitations of their studies, finally. So they say that, it's from a convenient sample of data, and there could have been like a type 2 error, so maybe there was stuff there that they missed because they only had 10 trials to work with, although I think it was kind of up to, I can't remember the number, like 2,000 and something patients. And what do they finish off with saying? That they've only focused on pain as an outcome, so it would be really interesting to see if disability or quality of life, which arguably are actually more important than pain, would have had a bimodal distribution as well. So sort of in conclusion, it's a bit of, it kind of undermines the clinical claim that certain people respond particularly well to certain treatments. And that's it. I hope you found that useful.